Chapter 996. Shiheng had blasted the troops before they had even set off. Then, he requested to negotiate with the 5-star army. He also said that if they had to fight with the 5-star army now, even if they won, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. If the Walla army took the opportunity to attack, they would not be able to fight back. At that time, Baiming would be in danger. Nearly 400,000 soldiers. They are only dealing with a few tens of thousands of exhausted 5-star army, yet they are still so timid. What do you think they are for? Zhu Qiyu condensed the anger in his heart into one sentence and asked Jining, who was standing beside him. Your Majesty, should we send another general to replace Governor Shi? Jining tried to suggest another method. It's too late, it's too late. As long as the 5-star army is given enough time to rest and reorganize, they will be able to recover quickly. If that's the case, it will be like what Shiheng said. Even if we defeat the 5-star army, it will be a Pyrrhic victory. Zhu Qiyu shook his head. Opportunities were often fleeting. Any waiting could cause them to miss the best opportunity. Now, the opportunity was about to pass. He did not want to fight to the death with the 5-star army just to defeat the 5-star army and not have complete confidence in killing Yang Chendong. Your Majesty, what should we do next? Jining saw that the battle could not start and asked for a solution. Zhu Qiyu did not answer immediately. Instead, he hesitated for a long time before he slowly said, "Summon Su Yozhen." Su Yozhen had reported to Zhu Qiyu what she had seen and heard after she returned from Shi City. She also said that Yang Chendong was very grateful and looked forward to being conferred the title of Bugnam of Gojoseon by the emperor. For this reason, not only was he willing to provide nearly 200,000 Ming soldiers with provisions for free in Sanbuchuan, he was also willing to invest 5 million to help Baiming build a banking system. Zhu Qiyu, who wanted to be strong, could not refuse such a request. When it came to building a bank, he had already planned to do so. Back then, his predecessor, the current emperor of the southern Ming dynasty, Zhu Qizhen, also had the same idea. It was just that when he saw how powerful the Yang family's bank had become, he gave up on the idea of building his own bank. He thought that rather than building his own bank, he might as well take it for himself. Wouldn't that be better? However, reality was ever-changing. Not long after, the Tumu rebellion occurred, and Zhu Qizhen was forced to go to the south to proclaim himself emperor. After Zhu Qiyu ascended to the throne, he thought more about gathering people's support and building a new army. As for the matter of establishing a bank, he pushed it back again and again because he was short on money. Now, Yang Chendong was willing to invest 5 million taels of silver to help him build a bank. How could he refuse such a good thing? At that time, Zhu Qiyu had wanted to agree, but she hesitated because of the changes in the war on the grassland. He still wanted to see what would happen. If Yang Chendong was eliminated, then this promise would naturally be useless. Now, when the overall situation was settled and the winner was the 5-star army, Zhu Qiyu had to reconsider the cooperation with Yang Chendong. It was still the same sentence: the highest level of politics was not fighting and killing, but how to achieve one's wish in mutual compromise. Although they had cooperated with the Walla coalition before, although they did not directly send troops, they had indirectly become the enemy of the 5-star army. But now, for the sake of common interests, everyone had to sit down and talk again. Su Yozhen was urgently summoned to the palace. The moment the eunuch went to deliver the decree, she knew what would happen next. Compared with the intelligence network of Baiming, the Yangxia Security Bureau was more efficient. Thanks to them, Su Yozhen even knew the truth better than Zhu Qiyu. For example, the news that Marquis Wuxia Xianxia had been controlled. After a trip to the first city, Su Yozhen's originally wavering thoughts became very firm. That was, she completely stood on the side of Yang Chendong. The matter of turning the Duke of Zhonggang into the Bugnam of Gojoseon became her proof of allegiance and a big gift to her master. In the main hall of the palace, Zhu Qiyu asked about the 5 million taels of silver. The focus was on when the silver could be taken out. Replying to your majesty, the result of the discussion between the Duke of Zhonggang and I in the first city is that as long as your majesty announces to the world that he is the king, the people of the Yang family bank in the capital will send people to the location we have chosen to decorate. Once the decoration is successful, the 5 million taels of silver will be put into our own bank. Su Yozhen answered clearly again. In fact, she had reported this matter more than once. She believed that the emperor urgently summoned her not to hear this answer again. Zhu Qiyu nodded silently and did not speak immediately. After a while, he asked, "Can we carry out the decoration first?" Minister Su, you also know that there are still a lot of preparations to be made for things like being crowned king. It is not something that can be done with an imperial decree. Yes, your majesty is right. I think the Duke of Zhonggang can also understand. Then everything will be done according to your majesty's wishes. Su Yozhen did not even hesitate to make a statement. Of course, others did not know that this was originally a problem that Yang Chendong had considered. In order to get the throne, he was willing to take the initiative to give in. Anyway, the silver had not entered the account, so he was not afraid of Dai Zong playing any tricks. Su Yozhen readily agreed, which made Zhu Qiyu's face reveal a very satisfied expression. He had already made the best decision for this matter. The so-called choosing a location and making preparations was just to get out of the situation. Only this could explain why Su Yozhen did not mention the imperial decree when she came back and only brought it up now. Minister Su, do you have any suggestions for the construction of the bank? Or what does Minister Su think about the management rights in this area? In a good mood, Zhu Qiyu asked another question, as if he wanted to discuss it with Su Yozhen. Su Yozhen, who was asked, showed a very surprised expression at this moment and said, "Your Majesty, you must not." Su Yozhen's big reaction was greatly out of Zhu Qiyu's expectations. Minister Su, what do you mean? Your Majesty, the bank can only be managed by your majesty. It is like the Yang family bank belongs to Yang Chendong alone. How can you allow others to interfere? Su Yozhen said in a firm tone. When these words were said, Zhu Qiyu's expression changed. Minister Su means that the bank belongs to us? Of course it does. After all, this is a matter of wealth and is something that everyone wants. Even if it is in the hands of others, they will not feel at ease. It is only proper for it to be managed by your majesty alone. Once again, she said in an incomparably firm tone. This also gave Zhu Qiyu incomparable confidence. Originally, he thought that it would be like the Ministry of Revenue managing the finances and should be handed over to someone else to manage it. Now that he heard Su Yozhen's words, it was as if he was enlightened and had a new idea in his mind. But then, another question came. If the bank did not belong to the court and belonged to him, would other people have an opinion? Would they not deposit money in the bank because of this? If that was the case, the bank would exist in name only. Wouldn't it be a big joke? Although he was tempted by Su Yozhen's words, after thinking about it, Zhu Qiyu could not help but say, Minister Su's words are reasonable, but if it is like this, I'm afraid it will be too difficult to operate. Su Yozhen pretended to be serious and obedient, but at the same time, she could see the desire in Zhu Qiyu's eyes. She sneered in her heart and pretended to be distressed as she said, Your Majesty, you are too considerate of your subject. No one disliked being flattered, and Zhu Qiyu was no exception. But Your Majesty, forgive this subject for speaking bluntly, but you actually. Su Yozhen did not have any intention of finishing her words. On the contrary, she revealed an expression of wanting to say something. Sensing that Su Yozhen had something to say, Zhu Qiyu said, Minister Su, if you have something to say, just say it. We will pardon you. Many thanks, Your Majesty. What this subject wants to say is that if you don't take the bank for yourself, it will be the same as harming Baiming. Su Yozhen acted as if she had no other choice. When he said this, Jining, who had been standing to the side without speaking, immediately rebuked angrily, "Minister Su, how dare you? Wait, this is what we want Minister Su to say. Please continue." On the other hand, Zhu Qiyu gestured to Jining not to interrupt. Then, he looked at Su Yozhen seriously. He really wanted to hear what this person had to say next and how he was going to harm Bei Ming. "Thank you, Your Majesty, for your forgiveness. Since it is like this subject will speak bluntly," Su Yozhen said gratefully. "What we want to hear is Minister Su speak bluntly." "Speak." Zhu Qiyu acted as if he knew how to accept people. "Yes." With a forced expression, Su Yozhen opened her mouth and said, "Your Majesty, you've always been very benevolent and considerate of your subjects. But do you know that if you give too much, not only will you not accept people's gratitude, it will instead be recognized as a habit? Over time, everyone will think that everything they are receiving now is deserved. Once the day comes when the court needs money and grain, how many people will take out their own money to support the court?" When these words were spoken, Zhu Qiyu immediately thought of when he had first established the new army. When he needed money, almost everyone was trying to shirk it. In the end, he had no choice but to continuously borrow money from Yang Chendong. The feeling of a high and mighty emperor borrowing money from his subjects was naturally very unpleasant. When he faced Yang Chendong, he always felt that he lacked confidence. Was it all because he was too good to his subjects? Thinking of this, he asked in confusion, "Are there really not many people in the court who are willing to work for us sincerely?" Chapter 997. Yes, of course. If there are evil people, there are good people as well. Su Yozhen continued, "At the same time, there are those who take everything for granted and those who know how to be grateful. For example, those who believe that everything they have is given to them by Your Majesty, so they will be grateful. For example, the officials who have been promoted by Your Majesty, as well as Jin Gonggong and the others who have the fortune to serve by Your Majesty's side every day. We all know that everything we have was given to us by Your Majesty. To say something disrespectful, if there comes a day when Your Majesty is no longer here, everything we have will also be gone. For this reason, we are willing to give everything to you. No matter what decision you make, we will support you unconditionally and do as you say. Because in a sense, when we help the emperor, we are thinking about our own future." When these words were said, the first to react was Jining, who was standing beside Zhu Qiyu. As eunuchs, because of their own limitations, they could only rely on and had to rely on the emperor. As long as they received the emperor's approval, their future paths would be smooth and their work would be smooth. For example, they were a group of parasites that lived on the main body. If they wanted to live comfortably, they needed the main body to be strong enough. It was precisely because she understood these principles that when Su Yozhen said these words, Jining felt the same way and revealed a grateful expression. This was equivalent to Su Yozhen reminding the emperor that he was a trustworthy person. Of course, he had to make friends with a minister who was willing to speak up for him. Zhu Qiyu did not feel the same way as Jining, but she also knew that there was some truth in these words. Just as it was often said in the history books, a new emperor had a new court of officials. Many times, the relationship between the officials and the emperor was a cooperative one. Of course, there were those who cooperated and those who did not. For example, some people were good at creating their own net. No matter what happened above them, they would stand firm and not fall. This kind of person was the scariest and most hateful because they would not truly give their heart to any master. While Zhu Qiyu was still considering the deeper meaning of these words, Jining knew that it was time for her to make her first cut. She knelt down and said, "Emperor, Minister Su's words are from the bottom of his heart. There are indeed many people in the court with weak wills. Those people cannot be trusted." Jin Ying's words completely dispelled the misgivings in Zhu Qiyu's heart. He had thought through everything. When he looked at Su Yozhen, his face was full of emotion. "Official Su is indeed my right-hand man. What you said hit the nail on the head. I don't dare, I don't dare. Su Yozhen repeatedly declined. Then in Minister Su's opinion, this bank must be in our hands? If that's the case, is there anyone who has money in it? Zhu Qiyu asked the biggest question in his heart, which was also the thing he was most worried about. It wasn't just Zhu Qiyu. Ji Ning, who was kneeling on the ground, also raised her head to look at Su Yozhen. In his opinion, there were a lot of stubborn people in the imperial court, and there were also a lot of people who only thought about themselves. If the bank was privately owned by the emperor, they would definitely think of ways to cause trouble. Not only would they not deposit money, but they would also probably tell others not to deposit money. If that was the case, wouldn't there be no meaning in having a bank without money? Su Yozhen, who had long been prepared for this, did not change his expression. His voice was still sonorous and powerful. Emperor, this is not difficult to solve. Just as I said earlier, Your Majesty is always thinking of your officials. But how many officials truly think of Your Majesty? I think that the establishment of this bank can be used as the best way to test the waters. How do you plan to test it? Zhu Qiyu asked urgently. Your Majesty, in this official's humble opinion, in the future, the officials can go to the bank to claim their salaries. In order to support the bank, which is to support Baiming, all the officials must hand over 50% of their salaries to the bank each month as deposits. Once the Northern Ming Dynasty unified the world, all of the silver that had been deposited could be withdrawn. This way, not only will there be more money in the bank, it will also affect their own interests. This way, they won't have to worry about not doing their best in the future. Not only the officials, but also the merchants in Baiming. The bigger the business, the more money they save. It can also be called a deposit. This is to prevent them from doing anything that would harm Baiming's interests. Once discovered, the deposits will be confiscated. This way, in order to get back their own money, they must fully cooperate with the emperor. When that time comes, the hearts of the world will be united. What can't they do? With these generous words, Su Yozhen finally touched on Zhu Qiyu's sore spot. He said, in this official's opinion, the bank can be named the Zhu family bank. In the future, it will be passed down from generation to generation. At that time, Your Majesty's wise actions will be passed down for generations to come. The Zhu family bank will be passed down for generations to come, and its glory will be passed down for generations to come. Zhu Qiyu silently recited in his heart. Then, he raised his right fist high and slammed it down. He shouted, "Good. Beloved official Su's words are to my liking. It is a good plan for stabilizing the country. Great talent, great talent. Yes, Minister Su is so considerate of Your Majesty. You should be rewarded." To the side, Ji Ning began to add on. He had a feeling that once the emperor approved the establishment of the Zhu family bank, it was very likely that this job would eventually land on his head. In that case, his power would greatly increase. All of this was Su Yozhen's suggestion. In order to return the favor, he had to stand up and say something for the other party. When Ji Ning's praise came out, Zhu Qiyu also felt that it was reasonable. Good, good. Beloved official Su is indeed a good official. Since that is the case, I will immediately decree that beloved official Su will be the Crown Prince's junior tutor, as well as a grand scholar, and the Minister of Justice. This was a second-rank official directly promoted from a second-rank official to a first-rank official. When he had first mentioned these suggestions in the first city, Yang Chendong had predicted that Su Yozhen would be promoted because of this. He had not thought that there would be results so quickly. As expected, he was promoted by a rank. After the Great Ming Dynasty was divided into North and South, there was no longer a cabinet. The highest civil official was second-rank official. Su Yozhen stood out and became the second-rank official. He immediately knelt down to express his gratitude. Beloved official Su, please rise. The suggestion just now was very good. However, regarding the official's salary, I think the bank should only withhold 30%. They are also working for me, so I have to be considerate of them. Zhu Qiyu said in a very good mood. Your Majesty sympathizes with your officials. This is the good fortune of your officials. Here, I thank your Majesty on behalf of all the officials. Su Yozhen once again knelt on the ground with an appearance of being sincerely convinced. These words made Zhu Qiyu laugh heartily. Soon after, the three of them decided on the matter of the Zhu family's bank. In the end, Zhu Qiyu indeed handed the matter over to Jining to handle. He also clearly said that if any of the officials caused trouble because of this matter and did not cooperate, then find a reason to arrest them. This was clearly not supporting his great cause. He even had to make thoughtless remarks about deducting some money. Did he expect them to be willing to risk their lives at the crucial moment? The matter was settled just like that. Su Yozhen successfully completed the task Yang Chendong gave him and pushed Baiming's political power to the edge of the cliff. Speaking of which, the official's salary in the Ming dynasty was not high, especially in the beginning during Emperor Taizu's time. Even after experiencing the rule of Ren Xuanji, although the salary had increased to a certain extent, it was only 30% every month. Now, this 30% had been completely taken by Zhu Qiyu. In other words, for ordinary officials, it would be difficult for them to save up any more. This involved their own problems, so naturally, many people would stand up and react. If they could not obtain a solution and had to use force to forcefully suppress it, it would only lead to greater resistance and dissatisfaction. Once the people were dissatisfied, the giant Baiming was not far from collapsing. This was Yang Chendong's move to use a peaceful method to solve the Ming dynasty's problem. Now, it seemed that Zhu Qiyu had already fallen for it. Perhaps it would take a certain amount of time or a very long time for it to take effect. But after all, the first step had already been taken, right? Su Yozhen left. He did not return to his residence. Instead, he went directly to the Yang family bank in the capital to explain the Baiming emperor's intentions. Soon, the location of the Zhu family bank and the establishment of the corresponding equipment were on the right track. Next, they had to consider the important matter of issuing an imperial edict for Yang Chendong to be Bugnam of Gojoseon. On the grassland, all the reports from Su Yozhen came from the security bureau. Yang Chendong was overjoyed. The matter was settled. The next thing was to settle the grassland matter. It was already the 10th month of 1455 AD. The weather began to cool down in the morning and evening. After the war, the grassland was about to enter a relatively peaceful period of development. The 100,000 people sent by Qiqian City arrived at Shaojing City and Jingzhou City one after another, greatly increasing the population of the city. At the same time, the expansion of the city also sped up with the arrival of the 100,000 people. In this way, with Mabei City in the northwest and Shaojing City and Jingzhou City in the south, the origin city would be safer as the center. They could also expand the scale of the original cultivated land. This time, Yang Chendong asked for at least a total of 1 million hectares of fertile land to achieve self-sufficiency. At the same time, it could also support the Third Master Lu and other troops going to the grassland of northern Siberia. Building a city was not only about possession and existence. How to develop it and let the people live a more prosperous life was Yang Chendong's ultimate goal. He firmly believed that as long as the lives of the people were better, a country would become more stable and powerful. In order to protect the fruits of their hard-won victory, more people would be willing to do more for the power or the country. Chapter 998. Solving the problem of food, clothing, and housing was something that needed to be solved urgently and had to be solved. For these, Yang Chendong personally put forward various proposals and experiences. With the full support of the first city, the two cities of Shaojing and Jingzhou were constantly changing. It was far from enough for a city to merely have high walls. It also required the existence of a powerful army. Only then would it be able to form an effective deterrent force, and only then would it be able to avoid being invaded and targeted by others. After Yang Chendong thought about it, he handed over the matter of guarding the 2 cities to the new Second Army. In the battle with Walla, the new Second Army performed well. Although it was not as strong as the new First Army, it was at least much stronger than the Mabe Division and the Mabe Tribal Alliance that had lost their defensive line. Therefore, Yang Chendong was relieved to hand over the security of the south side of the first city to the new Second Army. The army surrounding Sambulachuan city had not yet withdrawn, but the corresponding commanding officers had already arrived at Shajing city and held a meeting in the newly built Yang Mansion here. At the meeting, Yang Chendong personally awarded the Major General Gold Star to the commander of the new Second Army, Tianhu, the commander of the 1st Cavalry Division, which attracted everyone's congratulations and applause. Listening to the congratulatory applause and looking at the field officers who attended the meeting, Yang Chendong reached out his hand to signal everyone to be quiet. Then he encouraged, comforted, and at the same time said in a cheering tone, "Today, Shibi and Tian who were promoted to Major General, but there will be more generals in the future. In the future, we will form a new army, the new 4th Army, or even more. As long as you have the strength and ability, then don't be afraid of not having a chance to show off." In the first city defense battle, Yang Chendong saw his own shortcomings. That was, when facing a strong enemy, the soldiers in his hands were still too few. It could be said that his foundation was too weak. It had only been a few years, and he pursued the path of elite soldiers. As the first city had completely gained a firm foothold on the grassland, Yang Chendong's requirements for the elite cavalry were also constantly increasing. From a small number of elite cavalry to a large number of elite cavalry. After the meeting, Yang Chendong stayed behind and talked about the situation on the grassland. "The Baiming army won't be able to surround us for too long. Young master, I might have to leave this place for a while. Do you know what to do?" In the face of this interview, Sherbet nodded heavily and said, "Sixth young master, thank you for handing such a heavy responsibility to me. I will not let you down. I have also considered the following matters. There are 3 main points that I would like to ask the 6th young master to correct. Tell me about it." Seeing that he was prepared, Yang Chendong nodded with satisfaction. The reason why he promoted this person's position so quickly was that he had a good view of the overall situation. Now it seemed that he did not disappoint him along the way. Sherbet began to express his opinions. The first point was to stabilize Shajing City and Jingzhou City and build them here at the same time. Not only would they become the southern barrier of the first city, but they would also become the new base of the 5-star army. Once they attacked from the south, it would become the most solid defense. The second point was how to have a good relationship with the Baiming army. It was neither too far nor too close. They would not make a move, but they would also make the other party afraid. The third point was to develop commerce and handicraft industry. Sherbet mentioned that he had seen some weaving factories built in the first city. He thought that it was possible to move some of them to Shajing City and continue to develop. At the same time, he could also use the natural advantages here to raise a large number of horses and sheep. In short, he wanted to be self-sufficient as soon as possible. Very good. After listening to Sherbet's speech, Yang Chendong gave him a lot of encouragement and then said, "This time, I will move the people of the 2 cities to the first city and Mabe City. At that time, the total of 100,000 people in the 2 cities will be completely trustworthy. They will be very obedient. This will be more conducive for you to carry out your plan. I hope that the next time I come, I can see a different appearance of the 2 cities. Is there any problem? I promise to complete the task." Sherbet took the initiative to stand up and answer. "Very good. Then you can do things according to the plan in your heart. If you need anything, your old superior, the new army commander Tiger's Mane, the logistics division commander Yang Si, and the lord of the first city, Yu Mian, will do their best to support you." Yang Chendong patted Sherbet's shoulder and gave him high hopes. After Sherbet left, Tiger's Mane walked into the main tent and sat opposite Yang Chendong. In the face of this page boy who had followed him for many years, Yang Chendong had always given him a lot of trust. Many important things would be handed over to this person to do. This time was no exception. He handed over the preparation of the new army to him. Tiger's Mane, when choosing an army, you have to choose a general first. It is very important to choose the commander of the new army. Without any pleasantries, Yang Chendong went straight to the point. Young master, what do you think of Su He? Tiger's Mane also came prepared. He knew that the reason why the first city defense battle was fought this time, including the young master sending the Wolf Fang special forces to hold Shihang, was all because of the lack of military strength. He was also prepared to support the expansion of the army. Now that he was asked, he named the Tatar division commander Su He. Tiger's Mane's answer made Yang Chendong very happy. In terms of the combat power of the new army, the Tatar division played a very important role. As the commander, Tiger's Mane could not be unaware of this. However, he still resolutely pushed the main general out. From this point alone, he already had a view of the overall situation and was mature. Good, Tiger's Mane, you have finally grown up. Young master can also rest assured. That's it. Su He will be the temporary commander of the new army. You can tell him that when the new army is completed and has enough combat power, I will personally confer the rank of Major General to him. Well, after this battle, the new Second Army and the new First Army also suffered a lot of losses. We can consider replenishing them. As for the new army, after the Tatar division is gone, they can join other divisions. In short, their combat power cannot be weakened. Young master, I will see all of this when I come to the grassland next time. Young master, please rest assured. Tiger's Mane's gaze was firm, and his voice was strong as he replied. In the battle with the Walla, the 5-star army suffered a lot of losses, especially the cavalry charge under the heavy rain, which increased the difficulty of the charge. When the whole body was wet, every swing of the sword had to use more strength than usual, which increased the difficulty of the battle. Naturally, the losses in this battle were greater than usual. Fortunately, there were many captives. In the future, after these people were reformed and joined the 5-star army, they would be a strong force. During this period of time, Yang Chendong continuously met with his officers to encourage them. He gave them high positions, but at the same time, he also gave them a lot of pressure. In short, the cavalry had to continue to develop, and he wanted to see these officers perform well. He hoped that in the future, they could become real generals like Shibei and Tianhu. Time passed day by day. The side besieging the city did not move, and the side being besieged also did not move. Everyone seemed to be waiting for something. Half a month later, there was finally news. The acting emperor of Baiming, Zhu Qiyu, announced to the world that in view of Yang Chendong's loyalty and bravery, and this time, together with the Baiming army, he had chased away the allied cavalry of the Walla and Ili. His contributions were great, and he was bestowed with the title of Bugnam of Gojoseon, and his name was announced to the world. When the imperial edict came out, the entire imperial court of Baiming had all kinds of opinions. Some old officials who had retired for many years came out like bamboo shoots after the rain. Some directly wrote a letter, and some joined together to request to see the emperor. In short, there was only one sentence: the Duke of Loyal and Courageous had a heretical heart, and he could not be bestowed with the title of king at will. Not only that, some of the princes of the various regions of the Zhou clan also wrote memorials. The general idea was that the emperor had to be careful when bestowing the title of king with a different surname. They had to prevent the emperor from being deceived by petty people. The Duke of Loyal and Courageous territory was already very large. If he was given a proper title, how would he be restrained in the future? The memorials in front of Zhu Qiyu quickly piled up like a mountain. The reaction from below was giving him a headache. To the side, Jining saw that the emperor was distressed and suggested that they invite Su Yozhen, the scholar Su, to come and see if he had any countermeasures. Ever since Su Yozhen had said that the establishment of the bank would belong to the emperor alone, and Jining had been given this cushy job, the two of them had quickly warmed up. Now that there was an opportunity, he naturally had to lead the way for his good friend. Su Yozhen, who was now the crown prince's junior tutor and scholar, and a first-rank official of the court, quickly arrived at the imperial palace. After saluting, Su Yozhen was asked how to deal with the current situation. Su Yozhen asked with a confident look, "Your Majesty, this subject dares to ask, in these memorials, in addition to objecting to Duke Zhongdan's coronation, are there also memorials to impeach this subject?" Beloved official, there is no need to pay attention to this. Zhen knows what to do. In order to comfort Su Yozhen, Zhu Qiyu purposely put on an expression of complete trust in him and that there was no need for him to worry. This proved that there was. Su Yozhen understood and immediately said, "Your Majesty, this subject believes that this is a very normal matter. At the end of the day, the root cause of these actions is only one word, jealousy." Jealousy? Zhu Qiyu didn't quite understand. Yes, jealousy. They are jealous that this subject has become the crown prince's junior tutor and scholar, so they are impeaching this subject. At the same time, they are jealous that the Duke of Loyal and Courageous being bestowed the title of king, so they are also impeaching him. Speaking of which, it is just the thoughts of petty people. It is not worth paying attention to. You are the emperor. You are the favored son of the heavens. When something happens, your words carry enormous weight. Why do you need to act according to other people's wishes? In the end, this country is still yours. It is up to the emperor to decide who to promote and who to use. Speaking of which, the country needs money. Why don't we see them jumping out to give their opinions? This kind of person who only knows how to be jealous of others is useless at crucial times. They only know how to argue and use their pen. It is not worth your Majesty paying attention to their opinions. Chapter 999. Su Yozhen had publicly slandered a colleague. If word of this got out, it would be difficult for him to maintain a foothold in the court. However, he still said it. He was certain that neither Zhu Qiyu nor Jining would say it out loud. From a certain perspective, they were already in the same boat. They were bound together for good or ill. These words caused Zhu Qiyu to fall silent. Of course, he knew that some of the court officials were full of self-awareness. If it were a prosperous time, they might have some knowledge of how to govern the country. However, when the country was in danger, it was already good enough that these people didn't cause trouble. These people didn't deserve his attention. However, there were so many memorials here. He couldn't just ignore them. Now, he didn't even dare to go to court. As soon as he went to court, he would be met with the objections of his subordinates. It was a headache. Zhu Qiyu didn't say anything. Su Yozhen's eyes turned and he said again, "Your Majesty, there is a better way to divert everyone's attention. I guarantee that no one will mention this matter in the future." "Oh, I knew that Minister Su would have a way." "Quickly say it." Zhu Qiyu had been waiting for this result. He immediately asked with a face full of joy. "Yes, I believe that it is time to announce the establishment of the Zhu family bank and the matter of the salary being deducted to the world." "What?" Zhu Qiyu's face was filled with shock when he heard this. Then, he shook his head violently and said, "The coronation has already caused so much chaos. If the matter of the bank is also revealed, won't it be even more chaotic?" "It won't." In order to strengthen Zhu Qiyu's heart, Su Yozhen took the initiative to say, "Your Majesty. Instead of doing all that you can to suppress the side effects of the coronation, you shouldn't reveal the matter of the bank. Let's see how they deal with it. When the time comes, your Majesty will use all your power as the Son of Heaven to suppress it. Everything will be fine." Su Yozhen's intention was quite obvious. Since there was going to be chaos, it was better to release all the things that were going to be chaotic. In this way, the first chaos would still be chaos, and the second chaos would still be chaos. It was better than solving things one by one. Your Majesty, Lord Su's words are reasonable. Jining saw an opportunity and spoke up to encourage him. This was actually what he wanted to say. Jining naturally did not care about the chaos caused by Yang Qindong's coronation. If it was possible, he would have opposed being crowned king. However, if he did not give the throne, the 5 million taels of silver would be in his hands. Helpless, he could only take a step back. Now that the matter was in chaos, it was unknown how long it would take for the bank to be built. How could he reap any benefits from it? In short, Jin Ying's idea was that the earlier the bank was established, the earlier he could make money. As for whether it was chaotic or not, what did that have to do with him? After Jining added, Su Yozhen spoke for the third time, Your Majesty, the matter of the bank is related to the foundation of the country. The earlier it is established, the earlier we can make money. We can also solve my Baiming problem earlier. Your Majesty, this subject wants to see the day when the Northern, Southern, and Great Ming are united. This subject sincerely hopes that this day will come soon. As he spoke, Su Yozhen knelt on the ground with a thump. His eyes seemed to be filled with tears. At this moment, he perfectly portrayed the side of a loyal subject. Just now, Zhu Qiyu was already somewhat moved. Now that he heard about unifying the Great Ming as soon as possible, the blood in his heart was instantly stirred. How could he care so much? He immediately said, Beloved official Su's heart is comforted. Since this is the case, Jining, has the matter of the bank been prepared? Your Majesty, it has been prepared. We only need to wait for the silver to arrive before we can open for business. Your Majesty, this subject will go to the Yang family bank after leaving the palace and personally escort the 5 million taels of silver to the Zhu family bank. Oh right, Eunuch Jin, I will need you to send the embroidered uniform guards along the way. Su Yozhen struck while the iron was hot. Well said, well said. Please do not worry, official Su. Jin Ying's face immediately bloomed with joy. When Zhu Qiyu heard their one-on-one conversation, it was as if the matter had already been settled. He knew that he had to make a decision. He immediately said, Since this is the case, we will announce this matter at the morning court tomorrow. Humph. We would like to see who will oppose this and how many of them are loyal to us. Your Majesty is wise. Su Yozhen and Jining immediately knelt on the ground and shouted, Long live the Emperor. Su Yozhen's appearance caused the spearhead that should have been directed at Yang Qindong to be directed at the Zhu family bank. When all the officials found out that in the future, 30% of their monthly salary would be deposited in the Zhu family bank and would only be taken out when Baiming unified the world, there was an immediate uproar. Yang Qindong was conferred the title of Wu Nan Wang, and most of them were jealous of him. But, they couldn't rule out the possibility that some of the officials were worried that Yang Qindong's influence would grow too big, and would eventually destroy the Great Ming's rivers and mountains. Then, where would they go? Only then did they submit memorials to the emperor one by one. It was as if they didn't do this, they wouldn't be able to show that they were loyal officials. However, the Zhu family bank was directly related to their interests. This time, there was no need for others to remind them. Who knew how many people took the initiative to submit memorials to the emperor, directly pointing out the various undesirable aspects of the Zhu family bank. Moreover, the establishment of the Zhu family bank also involved merchant groups. In the future, when doing business, they would need to place a deposit. Moreover, the larger the business, the higher the deposit would be. This poked at these people's sore spot. They quickly took action. It was said that officials and merchants were inseparable. It was the same regardless of era. Under the instigation of these merchants, even more officials stood up and bitterly pointed out the various faults of the Zhu family bank. Baiming's court thus became a pot of porridge. It was likely that it would take several months for the situation to settle down. In contrast, the situation in the grasslands became much more harmonious. When the imperial edict of the Duke of Loyalty being promoted to Bugnam of Gojoseon arrived, Tai Hu and the others left Shiheng's main tent with smiles on their faces. "Marquis, do you want us to chase after them and take them down?" Shiheng was finally safe. The personal guards beside him also jumped out to show their loyalty. "Take what? They've already left. Besides, their master is now Bugnam of Gojoseon. How could it be so easy to provoke him?" Shiheng shook his head. Then, he thought of something important and said, "Quick, send someone to Sanbuchuan to take a look. See if the 5-star army has already retreated." The scouts were sent out, and the news quickly came back. As expected, the 5-star army had already retreated. The Xuanfu soldiers were no longer trapped and were already safe. Upon hearing this news, Shiheng immediately wrote a memorial. The general idea was that through his unremitting efforts, the danger of Sanbuchuan had been resolved. He was already prepared to bring the army back to the capital. This trip to Shiheng could be said to be full of twists and turns. First, he waited for news near Jianghu Pass. Then, he was threatened the moment he left Tulu. From start to finish, he didn't even see the shadow of a single friendly army, but the mission could be considered completed. Of the 200,000 soldiers, only 100 red coat cannons had been damaged and blown up. There were almost no casualties. They could be considered to have returned without a hitch. In Shaojing City, the news that Yang Chendong had been conferred the title of Bugnam of Gojoseon had spread, eliciting a burst of cheers from the soldiers and common people. Other than a few people in the know, the majority of the people didn't know how this trick had happened. How had their 6th young master become a prince of a different surname, personally conferred by the emperor of the Great Ming Dynasty? Although they couldn't figure it out, this was still a good thing, worthy of everyone's celebration. In Shaojing City, after sending away group after group of subordinates who had come to congratulate him, Yang Chendong knew that it was time to leave the grassland. This trip had been more than a year, and his daughter Lele probably didn't remember him. In addition, the winter in the grassland was very cold. In contrast, the weather in Qiqian City was warm and pleasant. After leaving Shaojing City and leaving everything here to the commander of the new Second Army, Yang Chendong brought Tiger's Mane and the others back to the first city, where he picked up the 6th Madame Wan Xiaoyu. Then, he left the first city with Beta Persei and 1,000 Longwei and the main force of the 5th Sea Division, and went straight to the Korean province from the Liaodu area. In December 1455, Yang Chendong and his party returned to Qiqian City by ship. Qiqian City Palace. Yang Chendong, who had returned, was covered in dust. He rode the white dragon and went straight to the inner palace. Along the way, everyone he saw knelt on the ground and said, "Long live the king." He acted as if he didn't see all this. His heart was only thinking about his daughter Lele. He hadn't seen her for more than a year, and he missed her very much. In a courtyard in the depths of the palace, Lele, who was already 1 year and 5 months old, could already walk. He hobbled around with his chubby little face and his big eyes blinking, as if everything he saw was new to him. Her mother, Qiao Yin, surrounded Lele with a group of maids, watching her every move. From time to time, they would laugh at her somewhat childish actions. But at some point, the small courtyard suddenly quieted down. The sudden appearance of a man attracted everyone's attention. As if feeling that the atmosphere was not right, little Lele, who was walking happily, also looked back and saw an unfamiliar man wearing a golden battle armor. Seeing such a tall stranger suddenly appear, Lele instinctively cried. She seemed to be frightened, and also seemed to be affected by Yang Chendong's murderous aura. Wah! In the quiet atmosphere, this cry immediately tugged at everyone's heartstrings. Immediately, a few maids ran to Leilei's side. However, no matter how fast they were, they couldn't be faster than Yang Chendong, who was running with big strides. He hugged Leilei the moment he reached out, and then the inner qi in his dantian kept surging. Yang Chendong jumped 4 feet high continuously. This height made Leilei feel like she was riding on clouds. Her eyes that were originally filled with tears suddenly stopped moving. She first held her breath and concentrated, as if she was very afraid. But soon, she got used to the rhythm. She actually followed the baring her fangs and brandishing her claws, shouting, "Hi, hi, hi." After jumping continuously for a while, Yang Chendong felt a little tired, so he stopped. Then, he hugged Leilei and said, "Come, Leilei, call me father." After suddenly stopping and being stared at by Yang Chendong, Leilei, who couldn't get used to it, started crying again. Her voice was strong and didn't sound like a girl at all. Chapter 1000. Xiao Yin finally walked over from afar. She looked at Yang Chendong with a gentle gaze, but when she saw Leilei crying, she couldn't help but take the child into her arms. "Young master, Leilei is still young. She hasn't seen you for so long. I'm afraid she has already forgotten about you." "Has she forgotten? I'm also her father," Yang Chendong said nonchalantly, then made a face at Leilei, who was in her mother's arms. Leilei, who was originally in her mother's embrace, suddenly felt a sense of security. She then began to curiously size up this strange man who was playing with her. When she saw him make a funny face at her, she immediately forgot about what had just happened and laughed out loud. This was probably a blood relationship. After all, they were father and daughter. Even if they were unfamiliar for a moment, they would quickly become familiar with each other again. Yang Chendong returned, and he returned to Crimson City as Bugnam of Gojoseon. Immediately, a few high-ranking officials came to greet Yang Chendong and reported on their work in the past year. In the past year, Crimson City's development was delightful. In particular, the first batch of Crimson City Academy students had graduated from the 6-year program. Most of them were talented and intelligent adults. They also had a certain degree of cultural background, so they learned things relatively quickly. Some of them had also achieved a certain degree of success in the fields of mathematics, physics, chemistry, and other fields. For example, the success of the 95 style was closely related to the participation of some students. Following the graduation of the first batch of 100 students, various units and departments were scrambling to recruit them as if they were looking forward to the stars and the moon. These were all Yang Xie's new students. They could be considered as one of Yang Chendong's disciples. They had a lot of knowledge that was different from this era. Once they were recruited into their departments, the benefits were far beyond imagination. Not only did the first batch of students graduate from the 6-year program, but there were also 600,000 ordinary people who learned some Chinese characters. Most of them had more or less learned some skills, so there was no problem for them to be self-reliant. Most importantly, they were grateful to Yang Chendong because they were the people who were sold to Yang Xie by the Southern Ming Empire. Back then, they were all skinny, not much different from people who were about to die. But now, their faces were rosy and they had skills. They were existences that could be moved to different places at any time and be used as a main force. In the eyes of many people, the expansion of Yang faction's forces was already very fast, but in fact, it could be even faster. The main reason was that Yang Chendong's forces were occupying land and cities, but they couldn't win the hearts of the people. This kind of occupation was meaningless, so Yang Chendong slowed down. Now that he had 600,000 loyal Han citizens, it was enough for him to conquer a large area. Good news came one after another. The many years of hard work in Crimson City were finally paying off. It also meant that Yang Xie's forces could reach a new level in the future. After returning to Crimson City, other than meeting all kinds of people and going to the various factories and units to give his opinions, Yang Chendong spent most of his time in the palace playing with his daughter Lei and working hard at night. There was no other way. Yang Chendong's love for Lei exceeded everyone else's love. Every night, as long as he had time, he would personally coax his daughter to sleep and patiently tell her stories before going to accompany the other madams. This made the madams who originally thought that he did not like children understand that it was not that their husband did not like children, but that he did not have any of his own. Since their husband liked children so much, what were they waiting for? Making use of the time that Yang Chendong spent in Crimson City to celebrate the new year, he was exhausted every night. Fortunately, he never stopped exercising, so his body could still take it. In the blink of an eye, year 1456 arrived. The new year was naturally celebrated in Crimson City's palace. This was also his first new year after becoming the Southern Martial King, so it was naturally very lively. Compared to the liveliness in Crimson City, Southern Ming King Zhu Huidong's days were getting harder and harder. After a year of bitter fighting, he, who did not have any foundation, was gradually losing. Under the pincer attack of Southern Ming King Zhu Qizhen and Shiping King Mu Bin, he had already lost a quarter of his territory. Even so, his forces were still shrinking. If not for the support of the Miao people, he would not have been able to hold on. But even so, with his defeat, without external help, it was only a matter of time before he lost this war. Southern Minging sect's Zhu Qizhen had a good new year. When all the food was bought by the 5-star army at a fair price, the pressure on him decreased a lot. The soldiers did not need to continue farming and only needed to train and wait for the battlefield. This indirectly increased the strength of the army, allowing them to win against Southern Ming King's army. However, Zhu Qizhen neglected one thing. Although the army did not have to worry about food, what about the commoners? For many commoners, farming was the only thing they could do and knew how to do. But now, the country did not care about farming at all. They did not give any help, but the taxes they collected were not low at all. Other than a few landlords who still had a lot of land, the commoners who only had a few plots of land could not survive. In order to survive, they had no choice but to look for other ways to survive. The 5-star army shelter near Langshan became a place where many people went to. The Langshan shelter was specially built by Yang Chendong to take in the Han people who had no home to return to and had nowhere to live. There was enough food and carriages there. As long as the Han people escaped there, they would be able to eat their fill and wear warm clothes. At the same time, the 5-star army soldiers stationed there would ensure their safety. It was also said that after coming here, they would be quickly taken away. As long as they performed well, they would be given a large plot of land and live a rich life. As more and more Han people appeared in Crimson City and even secretly entered the Southern Ming Kingdom, their influence grew. In just a year, the number of citizens in the Southern Ming Kingdom had decreased by more than 1 million. However, because the Southern Ming Kingdom had tens of millions of people and most of the people who escaped were the lowest class people who had nowhere to go, it did not attract much attention. Increase our efforts and send people to send large amounts of food to the shelter. In short, as long as there is still a breath left, we must save all the Han people and give them a new life. In the Crimson City Lord's mansion, Yang Chendong and Yu Qian sat opposite each other. When they talked about the Southern Ming Kingdom, King Nanwu spoke with an unquestionable tone. Regarding Yang Chendong's compassion and love for the people, Yu Qian naturally agreed. However, when he thought about the voices of opposition, he could not help but say, "King Nanwu, if we do this, we will have to pay a lot more money and food. Some people say that it is not worth it to exchange for some illiterate people." *T Yang Chendong directly refuted this statement. The people being illiterate is not their choice. It is the system and environment. How many of the Crimson City people were literate in the past? Since they can learn, why can't others learn? City Lord Yu, if anyone says such words in the future, tell them to talk to me directly. I want to see how many heads they have. Yang Chendong rarely spoke in a reprimanding tone. It could be seen that the position of the Han people in his heart was very high. Such a decision made Yu Qian very happy. He was originally an exception in the great Ming dynasty's officialdom. He was also a person who spoke for the people. Now, there was someone who not only had the same thoughts as him, but also had the qualifications to keep his word. How could he not be happy? However, at the same time, he had a kind of concern. What was the point of having so many Han people? The entire Crimson City, and even the entire Ryukyu Island, had been developed in the past few years. If there were more people, there would really be no land to plant. Bugnam of Gojoseon, based on the current situation of Ryukyu Island, there is no need for too many people. Even if some factories still need people, the number needed is limited. The arrival of these people will only increase our burden. As he spoke of the worries in his heart, Yu Qian stared at Yang Chendong. He wanted to see his trump card. This would be a great comfort for him when he did things in the future. To others, Yang Chendong only expressed goodwill towards the Han people, but did not completely expose his ambitions. However, to Yu Qian, a person who was truly loyal to the Han, Yang Chendong did not have any intention of hiding. Firstly, he knew that Yu Qian was tight-lipped. Secondly, his own ideals did not conflict with Yu Qian's, so he would be supported. Thirdly, as the city lord of Crimson City, in fact, Yang Xia was the highest official in charge of the place. He also needed to know his own thoughts. Thus, in front of outsiders, Yang Chendong expressed his own ideals for the first time. City Lord Yu, Crimson City does not need so many Han people, but other places do. For true Han people, we will only think that there are too few, not too many. Bugnam of Gojoseon's meaning is. Yu Qian seemed to understand, but it also seemed like he did not completely understand. The meaning is very simple. Our Yang Xia's territory will not be limited to what is in front of you. You can see the land around Great Ming, but there are many places that you cannot see. For example, the Western world where Portugal and Spain are located will be like Laos in the future, becoming our territory. Speaking of this, Yang Chendong's eyes were filled with a trace of hope and passion. As the city lord of Crimson City, developing businesses was also within his jurisdiction. Naturally, Yu Qian was not unfamiliar with Portugal, Spain, and the other Western countries. From what he knew, that place was also very vast. It was just that it was too far away, and he had to cross the sea, so he did not pay too much attention to it. What he did not expect was that Yang Chendong had actually set his sights on that place. Just how ambitious was that? For a moment, Yu Qian was truly shocked. Chapter 1001. As far as he knew, the strongest force in history was the Mongol cavalry led by Genghis Khan. Not only did they occupy most of the areas around the Central Plains, they even went as far as Eastern Europe, which was the present-day Austria, Hungary, Vienna, and the vicinity of the Danube. That was already so shocking that even now, many places were still ruled by their descendants and remnant forces. But now, Yang Chendong's reason seemed to be even more far-sighted. He actually wanted to attack across the sea. Wasn't this the rhythm of conquering the entire world? Yu Qian did not know that the Bugnam of Gojoseon in his eyes was from the future. He had seen too many scenes of Han people being discriminated against and seen too much injustice. He had even seen countless provocations, but what he could do back then was limited. Now that he finally had the chance to change everything, no matter how hard he worked, it was all worth it. He wanted to see the moment when the Han people stood at the peak of the world. He wanted the blood of the Han people to always be the noblest and purest. He wanted to see that no matter where, the Han people represented the most powerful and inviolable, there was no blasphemy. For this dream, he was willing to give up everything, including his life. Yang Chendong's showdown made Yu Qian admire him, and at the same time, he also gained more confidence. Bugnam of Gojoseon, don't worry. This old subject knows what to do. In the future, I will accept as many Han people as there are. If there is any pressure, this old subject will bear it. If I can't bear it, I will ask for help from Bugnam of Gojoseon. Good. If there is someone who goes overboard, City Lord, you can do whatever you want. Even if the sky falls, this prince will hold it up for you. Yang Chendong smiled. With Yu Qian's support, the number of Han people in his hands would definitely increase. This would play a very positive role in his future plans. After leaving the City Lord's manor, Yang Chendong set up a few important factories under the protection of Long Wei. The reason why Yang Xie could develop so smoothly was because of these factories. Furthermore, because they produced countless products that surpassed this era, it allowed the 5-star army to have more money. With a sufficient financial foundation, they could do more things that they wanted to do. Every time he returned to Crimson City, as long as he had time, Yang Chendong would visit these factories to encourage everyone and also to help them solve some problems. He might not understand all the professional things, but after all, he had the experience of the later generations. He was the clearest about which path he should take and which direction he should choose. After Yu Qian and Yang Chendong finished their discussion, he waved his brush and took out 1,000,000 taels of silver from the treasury to invest in the Langshan shelter at the border of Southern Ming and Southern Ming. It must be said that in these past few years, there were many different types of products in Crimson City, and they were all extremely novel. The moment they left the island, they would become popular goods and brought about great profits. It was also because of this that he was quite satisfied with his position as City Lord. At the very least, he did not need to worry about money and was incomparably bold when doing things. After receiving the silver, Yu Qian felt that he had not done enough. Thus, he got someone to arrange for him to go to the Han people's preparation camp to take a look. He wanted to understand the situation there and solve the practical problems while also encouraging the Han people. Following Yang Chendong's words, these people would be scattered all over the world as seeds in the future. Now that they were fortunate enough to stay in Crimson City, he wanted to give them warmth and let them feel his care and concern. The Han people preparation camp referred to the Han people who came from other places temporarily. No matter what their living conditions were like before, they were treated equally here. At the same time, they had to learn all kinds of skills. For example, the men could learn farming, blacksmithing, fishing, or work in factories. The women could learn weaving, embroidery, or work in factories, and so on. In short, the first person had to learn at least 1 or 2 skills to prepare for a better life outside. Other than that, learning culture was also essential. If anyone performed exceptionally well, they might be able to stay in Crimson City forever. In the end, it was up to everyone to decide. In short, this was a preparation camp. People came from all over, and after recharging, they were arranged to go in all directions. Because people came and went frequently, the Han People Preparation Camp was not only under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Civil Affairs. At the same time, the Ministry of Public Security also had people stationed here 24 hours a day to prevent unpleasant things from happening. At the same time, it was also to supervise everyone and act as a deterrent. When Yu Qian arrived at the preparation camp, he saw many public security personnel patrolling nearby. As it was close to evening, many people who went out to work had returned, making the place very lively. Although it was called a preparation camp, it was not a simple tent. Instead, it was a proper 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom house built with red bricks and gray tiles. The only difference was that the owner of the place changed frequently. Yu Qian came in plain clothes, which was his usual style. He did not like to be ostentatious wherever he went. Most of the time, he came quietly and left quietly. Some problems were quickly solved. This time was the same. When Yu Qian came, he only brought an assistant and 2 guards arranged by Yang Chendong. They were all from Lingfeng. Arriving early was better than arriving at the right time. When Yuan arrived, everyone had finished their work and was having dinner. He took the citizen's identification card from the governor's mansion and arrived at the place without attracting any attention. He saw a family of 5 squatting outside the door and eating dinner. This was a very ordinary family of 5. The parents brought 3 children, 2 boys and 1 girl. Among them, the eldest son was already over 15 years old. He was in the middle of puberty, which was also the time when the people said that the half-grown boy was eating his father dry. When Yuan walked to the door of the courtyard, he saw the 15-year-old boy eating all the rice in his bowl. He then turned to the older woman and said, "Mom, I'm still hungry. I still want to eat." "Okay, I can't finish it. Here, take it." As a mother, she would always dote on her son. The middle-aged woman with a benevolent expression placed her leftover bowl of rice in front of her son, causing the young man to chuckle foolishly. This scene represented the harmony and happiness of a family. It was unknown how many people would feel after seeing it, but in Yuan's eyes, he frowned slightly. His intuition told him that there was something more to it. He noticed his father shaking his head gently. It was not an expression that a strange woman would have when she loved her son, but there was a kind of love and helplessness in it. He quietly made a hand gesture. The 2 guards, including his assistants, stayed outside. He walked into the courtyard with a smile on his face. Then, he took out a box of Dahai cigarettes from his pocket and walked toward the middle-aged man who had just put down his bowl and chopsticks. The sudden arrival of a stranger in the courtyard naturally attracted the attention of the family of 5. When they saw that the newcomer was in his 50s and had an amiable expression on his face, the head of the family immediately stood up and rubbed his hands on his pants with a silly smile on his face. Then, he carefully reached out his hand to receive the cigarette. He placed it next to his nose and took a light sniff before saying, "Brother, this is the cigarette that people talk about, right? You know about this?" Yuan asked with a smile on his face. "Yes, I know. When I was learning in the factory, I saw someone smoke it. I've only been here for a short time, so I haven't tried it yet." The middle-aged man replied with a sincere smile. "That's right, then try it." Yuan still had a smile on his face. He took out a box of Yang family's matches from Crimson City and lit the cigarette for the middle-aged man. Perhaps because it was his first time smoking, the middle-aged man inhaled a little too quickly and choked. Then, he revealed an embarrassed smile. With the cigarette as a bridge of communication, the middle-aged man, who was not good with words, told Yuan what he wanted to know. The middle-aged man was called Jianghu. He was from Guangdong. When the war between the southern Ming and King Nanming broke out, due to the increase in land rent, he, who was already living a hard life, heard about the Liangshan shelter from his neighbors. Thinking of the old saying, "If you move, you live. If you move, you die." Thus, he and his family fled thousands of li from Guangdong to Liangshan. Then, they either hurried on foot, sat in a carriage or took a boat to the Han People Preparation Camp in Crimson City. After talking about the Liangshan shelter, Jianghu was filled with emotions. In his words, he had eaten all the food that he had not eaten his entire life. He, who had not been respected his entire life, finally understood the word dignity. He even praised how well he had been taken care of along the way. It was the kind of treatment that he had never experienced before. Even when he was young, his parents had taken care of him like this. When Yuan heard this, he nodded in satisfaction from time to time. Occasionally, he would add a few words. When he saw that the other party seemed to have finished speaking, he chuckled and said, "Brother Cheng, it seems like you're very satisfied with your current life?" "Satisfied, very satisfied." Jianghu chuckled and nodded, but his wife suddenly nudged him with her elbow. He immediately rolled his eyes, as if warning her about something. This little trick naturally did not escape Yuan's eyes. He immediately smiled. "What's wrong?" Could it be that Brother Cheng is still hiding something from me? After he finished speaking, he handed over the pack of Dahai cigarettes in his hand. Cheng Zhu's eyes narrowed into slits as he took the pack of cigarettes from Yu Qian. He felt that Yu Qian seemed to respect him a lot. After thinking about it, he also felt that it would be wrong of him to hide something from Yu Qian. He immediately said, "Actually, everything is fine. The only problem is that the food given is not enough. I'm afraid that old brother saw it just now. My eldest son is a little hungry, hee." Chapter 1002. After saying this, Cheng Zhu seemed to feel that he had said too much, so he scratched his head in embarrassment. When Yu Qian heard this, he still had a smile on his face, but he had become a lot more pragmatic. This shouldn't be. I heard that the matriculation camp's requirement is to provide enough food. How can there be a lack of food? Heard? Cheng Zhu looked confused. It's not that I heard, but it's the rule. To be honest, Brother Cheng, I'm actually an investigator. I'm here to see if there's anything you're not satisfied with. I'm here to solve your problems. Just like the lack of food, we'll solve it. Yu Qian knew that he had to give him some solid information, so he spoke as if he was an officer. That's what I said. Brother, your bearing is different from us commoners. Cheng Zhu had an, as expected, expression. Since he knew the other party's identity, he did not hide it anymore and told him about the lack of food given by the higher-ups. In the end, he added, "Brother, you saw it just now. My son is growing and has a huge appetite. My wife had no choice but to save some food for them. Then again, being able to eat 7 full meals is already very satisfying. This is something I didn't even dare to think about before." When Cheng Zhu said that he was satisfied, he really did not mean to blame him. In the past, he could not even eat 7 full meals. However, the same words had a completely different meaning in Yu Qian's ears. Yang Chendong had just told him that he wanted the Han people to be rich and to be superior. This was also the reason why he kept conquering new territories and snatching more resources. But now, they could not even fill their stomachs. How could they talk about wealth, dignity, and being superior? Yu Qian left. When he left, Cheng Zhu was still thanking him for the half-pack of cigarettes. Other than the loveliness of the commoners, they did not have high expectations. When someone did them a favor, even if it was just a drop of water, they would still thank them for a long time. After leaving the Han matriculation camp, Yu Qian's expression became completely serious. He looked at his assistant and said, "Send someone to check what's going on with the food problem. Remember, it has to be done in secret. Don't let anyone find out." Yu Qian's worries were not unfounded. Although Cheng Zhu's eldest son could eat a lot, which led to the lack of food, he did not think that this was a special case. If it was really as Yang Chendong said, and there was enough food, how could such a problem occur? Only 5 days later, the assistant had investigated the matter thoroughly. The city lord's mansion had elite manpower and many information channels. When they had any requests, the Security Bureau and the CIA could mobilize some of them. The city lord's assistant personally came forward and investigated the matter in just 5 days. Then, the report was placed on Yu Qian's desk. When he finished reading it carefully, he immediately slammed the table and cursed. According to the report, the Han preparatory camp did indeed have a problem of illegally withholding food. However, because the amount was not much, only 20% was deducted per person. In addition, the Han people who had just arrived were more honest. Even if some of them did not have enough to eat, they would not tell others. This problem had never been exposed, and no one questioned it. The report also said that the person in charge of this matter was the Vice Minister of Civil Affairs, Yan Xiu, and the Vice Minister of Public Security, Yuan. They had planted a lot of spies in the camp. Once they found out that someone had come to investigate, they would immediately come up with a plan to deal with it. With their men around, it was difficult for the people to even have a chance to speak. This time, if Yu Qian had not used an ordinary person's ID of the preparatory camp and not the special pass issued by the city lord's mansion, he would have attracted the attention of others as soon as he appeared. Then, they would not have been able to find out anything. How long ago was that? Yu Qian sat on the chair, panting heavily. He looked like he was very angry. My lord, it has only been 2 months. The assistant was afraid of being implicated, so he carefully replied. Hearing that it had only been 2 months, Yu Qian breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, this proved that the Han people who had left the matriculation camp before had not been exploited like this. Otherwise, once those people had left and been assigned to different areas, it would have been difficult to make up for it. However, even if it had only been 2 months, Yu Qian could not tolerate the existence of this matter. Although it involved the 2 vice ministers, he still had no intention of backing down or lifting a finger. Since Yang Chendong trusted him so much and gave him the authority of Resin City, he must take his salary and do a good job. Otherwise, he would feel sorry for himself. How about this? Send this document to Bugnam of Gojoseon in the palace. At the same time, report to Bugnam of Gojoseon that I'm going to deal with the 2 vice ministers. Reporting to Bugnam of Gojoseon instead of reporting to Yu Qian for approval meant that Yu Qian had made a decision to deal with the 2 senior cadres properly instead of just reporting the conflict to Bugnam of Gojoseon. Yu Qian was holding back his anger and wanted to properly deal with these 2 vice chiefs. Although these 2 were promoted to their current positions, and he had also raised his hand to agree, this did not prevent him from punishing these people for their crimes. Since there was a problem, he had to deal with it. Only in this way could he clean up the mess. Otherwise, if a cadre made a mistake, he would not be able to intimidate others. He had already decided to denounce the cadre and was even prepared to remove him from his post and investigate him. However, what Yu Qian did not expect was that just 3 days later, there was a sudden movement in the palace. A large number of Long Wei were sent out. They bypassed the Ministry of Supervision, the Ministry of Anti-Corruption, and even arrested Vice Minister Yan Xiu of the Ministry of Civil Affairs and Vice Minister Wuan of the Ministry of Public Security. Not only that, the head of the Ministry of Civil Affairs, Minister Zhou Hua, was also taken away from his office that afternoon. It was said that Minister Zhou was being wronged when he was taken away. When Yu Qian sent people to investigate, they did not find any problems with Zhou Hua. Yu Qian was very satisfied with this person who was recommended by him. However, he did not understand why this person was implicated. Could it be the responsibility of a leader? But if that was the case, why was Minister Long Tainan of the Ministry of Public Security not arrested? Within a day, a minister and 2 vice ministers were taken away from their offices. It was even done by Long Wei. This inevitably caused a lot of discussion among the subordinates. Many of the leaders were anxious and felt that they were in danger. Fortunately, Yang Chendong's actions were always clean and efficient. On the 2nd day of the incident, the Lord of Chisan City, Yu Qian, the Minister of Supervision, Shen Yu, the Minister of Anti-Corruption, Wu Qian, the Minister of Public Security, Long Tainan, and the Vice Minister of Logistics, Yin Qingba, were called to the palace. This was obviously to give an explanation for the arrest of Zhou Hua and the other 2. These high-ranking officials all rushed to the palace nervously. Everyone was extremely nervous. For example, the lord of the city, Yu Qian, was recommended by Minister Zhou Hua. He was guilty of using people inappropriately. Shen Yu and Wu Qian were the 2 leaders in charge of the cadre issue. Naturally, they were guilty of incompetence. Minister Long Tainan was the direct leader of Wanan. But the last one was Yin Qingba. He was only the Vice Minister of Logistics and was only responsible for distributing food. He only had a working relationship with Yan Xiu and the others. Could it be that he also made a mistake? For a moment, everyone looked at Yin Qingba with a strange look. Even he himself was at a loss. He was very sure that he was not involved in this matter. He had no personal relationship with Yan Xiao and the others except for his work relationship. He really couldn't understand why the sixth young master called him here. With his rank, it seemed that it was not enough. No matter what thoughts they had in their hearts, in the end, everyone gathered in a courtyard of the palace. Longwei's figure was everywhere in the vicinity. It was heavily guarded. In the courtyard, only Yang Chendong was sitting on a chair. Beside him stood the inseparable servant Beta Persei. As soon as everyone came in, they saw that there were only 2 empty chairs beside Yang Chendong. For a moment, everyone was silent. The atmosphere was so tense that they didn't say anything other than calling him the sixth young master. Among everyone, only Yu Qian was still stubbornly calling Yang Chendong Bugnam of Gojoseon. Perhaps this was his insistence. He insisted on using the official title of the Great Ming Dynasty Yang Chendong to show that he still had feelings for the Great Ming Dynasty. Although his heart had long been on Yang Xie's side, he had no intention of changing the title. Yang Chendong also had no intention of correcting this statement. After seeing Yu Qian, he politely stood up and pointed to the chair beside him. "Castellan Yu, please take a seat here." "Thank you, Bugnam of Gojoseon, for giving me a seat." Yu Qian didn't stand on ceremony. He liked to be straightforward. If it was something that belonged to him, he wouldn't refuse. After Yu Qian sat down, Yang Chendong looked at the remaining people. Then, his gaze fell on Yin Qingba. "Come, Vice Minister Yin, come and sit down too." "Ah." He didn't expect Yang Chendong to call out his name. In this environment where he was the lowest in terms of age, seniority, and position, Yin Qingba was a little overwhelmed. He just instinctively shook his head. Beta Persei, who was at the side, had already understood. Seeing that Yin Qingba was still shaking his head, he walked over without saying a word, pulled Yin Qingba over, and pressed him down on the only empty chair. Yin Qingba felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. He tried to get up several times, but Beta Persei's arm was so strong that he couldn't move at all. Until Beta Persei saw that he was still struggling, he whispered in his ear, "The sixth young master asked you to sit, so you sit. This is an order." Hearing the word order, Yin Qingba finally calmed down. Speaking of which, a vice minister of logistics in the Castellan mansion also had a lot of power. In particular, logistics had always been the place with the most benefits. Because of this, many people begged him. Yin Qingba had also seen some of the world. If it weren't for the fact that the people who came today were too high-ranking, he wouldn't have become so nervous. Chapter 1003. Yu Qian and Yin Qingba sat down, and the scene quickly became quiet. Yang Chendong, who was sitting in the center position, finally spoke. "Today, I called everyone here to give you an explanation regarding Yan Xiao and the other 2. At the same time, I also want everyone to give this king an explanation." Finally, they were talking about serious matters. The small courtyard was silent. Under Yang Chendong's signal, Beta Persei behind him took a stack of signed manuscripts and handed them to everyone. "You can take a look. This is the testimony of Yan Xiao and Wanan." After interrogation, they confessed to embezzling the food from the Han people preparation camp. After investigation, the food that was embezzled from their hands was eventually transferred to the market. A total of 28,000 taels of silver was ultimately split between the 2 of them. When the matter reached this point, everyone in the courtyard took a deep breath. 28,000 taels of silver, split equally between the 2 of them, that meant that each of them would get 14,000 taels of silver. This had already exceeded the maximum limit of 10,000 taels of silver. Needless to say, they would definitely die. Everyone's reaction fell into Yang Chendong's eyes. Even though he knew that these people already knew what he meant, he still said, due to the seriousness of this case, this king has decided to carry out the execution in front of the central square of Crimson City in 3 days. At that time, all the big and small departments in Crimson City must go and watch. If the other officials have nothing important to do, they must also be present. Does anyone have any questions? No. Knowing that Yang Chendong wanted to use this matter to intimidate the other officials, everyone nodded in agreement. Alright, if everyone has no questions, then we won't waste time on these two vermin. Next, let's talk about the other people and your problems. After investigation, the Minister of Civil Affairs, Zhou Hua, was aware of this matter. Although he adhered to his principles and did not wallow in the mire with Yan Xiu and the others, he clearly knew about it and did not stand up to stop it for the sake of the so-called harmony between colleagues. This is the crime of inaction. This was the first time that everyone had heard about the crime of inaction. For a moment, everyone was puzzled. Yang Chendong quickly gave them an answer. In this prince's opinion, there are only 3 types of officials. The first type is a problematic official. They either abuse their power for personal gain or take bribes. Such an official is called a bad official. The second type is someone who sets an example for others and works diligently. Such a person can be called a good official. But at the same time, there is also the third type, which is a monk ringing the bell every day and muddling through life. Adhering to the idea that things do not concern them, they will not stop or participate in anything wrong. They only want to live a stable life. These are the officials of inaction. When they have a problem, this prince calls it the crime of inaction. Zhou Hua was such a leader. He had noticed some disgraceful actions of his deputy, Yan Xiu, but he didn't stop it. He didn't point it out, and he didn't report it either. He just let the situation continue to develop. What was the difference between such a person and an accomplice? Receiving such a high salary and enjoying the halo of being respected by others, but not doing what he should be doing was also a sin. So this prince has personally chosen 50 mu of good farmland outside Qiqian city for him. In the future, he can obediently go and farm. There is no need to consider other people's feelings. If he grows well, he will have more. If he doesn't grow well, he will have less if he is lazy. This prince feels that this is very suitable for him. A crime of inaction had actually turned a high-ranking official back into a commoner. This kind of punishment couldn't be said to be light. For a moment, Yu Qian and the others' faces were flushed with shame. But at the same time, they had a deeper understanding of Yang Chendong's attitude towards officials. That was, since you were in this position, you had to do the work that this position should do. If you wanted to be lazy, or even want to do nothing to muddle through, it was clearly impossible. Zhou Hua's matter was thus settled. Following that, Yang Chendong criticized Shen Yu, Wu Qian, and Long Tainan. The first two were in charge of the self-discipline of officials, but they didn't notice the corrupt official in front of them. This was a dereliction of duty and negligence. For this, they were fined 2 months of salary. Long Tainan, as the direct leader of Wanan, was also guilty of negligence and was fined 3 months of salary. After making these decisions, Yang Chendong looked at the 3 and asked, "How is it? Do you have any objections to this kind of punishment?" "No." The 3 said in unison. Although they were indeed somewhat wronged, after all, there were so many officials in Yangxia. Especially when there were several provinces that needed to be monitored, it was impossible for them to take care of everything. However, even Zhou Hua had been stripped of his official robes because of his crime of inaction and had become an ordinary farmer. So what if they were fined a few months of their salary? The 3 didn't have any objections. Yang Chendong looked at Yu Qian and said, "This matter, City Lord Yu has both merits and faults. Because of your merits, this king has arranged a chair for you. After all, without you, this matter wouldn't have been exposed so quickly. But at the same time, the person who recommended Zhou Hua was you. You are obviously guilty of negligence, so this king will punish you with half a year of salary. Do you have any objections? Yu Qian had already stood up. He was always righteous, but at this moment, there was a trace of sweat on his forehead. This minister has no objections. Bugnam of Gojoseon did the right thing. Good, the punishment has been given. As a person who has done a meritorious service, you should continue to sit down. Yang Chendong's voice was full of concern as he said. There was no other way. At the beginning, he had set a rule. If there was a problem with the person who recommended the person who recommended the person would be jointly responsible. Seriously speaking, only penalizing Yu Qian with half a year of salary was the lightest punishment. After everyone's questions were asked, Yang Chendong's eyes finally fell on Yin Qingba. He said, Vice Minister Yin. This subordinate is here. Yin Qingba hurriedly got up, his face was full of anxiety. After listening for a long time, he still couldn't figure out why he was here. If he was guilty, he should be standing. But if he was meritorious, where was his meritorious service? Seat, you are a person who has done a meritorious service, so this king bestowed you a seat. Everyone else is the same. I hope that the next time you see this king, you can all sit down and talk. Yang Chendong gestured for Yin Qingba to sit down again. He didn't forget to use this matter to remind Shen Yu and the others. These words caused the three people to nod in unison. Feeling that he had already reminded them, Yang Chendong returned to the main topic. He looked at Yin Qingba and said, The reason why I said that you have done a meritorious service is because a while ago, someone privately came to you to sell food to you, but you bluntly refused. After that, you wanted to find this person, but you didn't have any clues. Is that right? Ah. How did the sixth young master know about this? Yin Qingba was stunned by these words. There was indeed such a thing. After all, he was a vice minister in charge of logistics in the city lord manor. He was in charge of the issue of food distribution. Because of this, someone wanted to sell food directly to him, but he refused at the time. After that, the more he thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong. He thought that this matter must involve something, so he wanted to find the person who came to him to find out the truth. But with his power, it was difficult to find that person. He also suffered from no evidence to prove the existence of this matter. He also had no way to report to the Ministry of Supervision and the Ministry of Anti-Corruption. In the end, he could only not find out. But he really couldn't understand how Yang Chendong knew about this matter. Facing the confused Yin Qingba, Yang Chendong quickly gave him an answer. You don't have to think too much about it. The person who came to you was sent by Yuan, a vice minister of the Ministry of Public Security. He didn't want to expose himself, so there weren't many people who could find out about him. This explanation made Yin Qingba immediately understand what happened that day. He immediately said with an ashamed expression, Sixth young master, this subordinate is also responsible for this matter. If it wasn't for the lack of evidence and the fact that I couldn't report to the relevant departments, I would have done so long ago. Perhaps the matter at the Han People Preparation Camp wouldn't have been delayed until now. No, this isn't your fault. You used your actions to prevent worse things from happening. I'm afraid you don't know. Originally, Yan Xiao and Yuan were prepared to keep more food, but because they couldn't find a suitable place to sell it, they could only sell it in small quantities in the city. That's why they only kept 20%. From this, it can be seen that you are already a person of merit. This king also sent people to investigate. When you were the vice minister of logistics in the city lord manor, you did everything by yourself and were a righteous person. Yes, as a reward, you can be the minister of the Ministry of Civil Affairs. Directly promoting a vice minister of logistics in the city lord manor to a minister was not as simple as being promoted by 3 ranks. This decision also stunned everyone. This was because everyone knew that there were 3 vice ministers in the Ministry of Civil Affairs who were quite capable. They were also righteous in their work. Logically speaking, they should have been strong candidates for the minister position. Now that a vice minister of logistics in the city lord manor was suddenly demoted to the position of minister, wasn't this a blow to their morale? As if he saw through everyone's thoughts, Yang Chendong said, a single matter in the Ministry of Civil Affairs caused problems to the minister and vice minister. As their colleagues, the other vice ministers are also responsible for their negligence. Not promoting them is a punishment for them. If anyone has any objections, they can come directly to this king. This king is willing to have a good talk with them. When he said this, he expressed his dissatisfaction, but at the same time, he also had the intention of conjugation. Conjugation was most famous in the Qin dynasty. It was first introduced by the famous reformer Shang Yang. It meant that several households were conjugated. If one person had a problem, everyone would be guilty. This kind of policy had its advantages and disadvantages. The advantage was that when something happened, everyone could think of the role of supervising each other. The disadvantage was that it often involved the innocent, and in the end, it forced the elderly to become the bad guys. Yang Chendong was well aware of the advantages and disadvantages of this, so when he talked about conjugation, he didn't use it so seriously. He didn't punish or promote, so that it wouldn't make people panic. Chapter 1004. After these words and decisions were made, everyone praised Yang Chendong's political wisdom in their hearts. At the same time, they also became more cautious. In the future, they needed to be more serious. Not only did they have to be righteous, they also had to influence the people around them to be righteous as well. Yin Qingba, who was called out, felt as if he had been hit in the head by a big pie. At this moment, he was so excited that he didn't know what to say. As usual, he could only tactfully decline and say, "Sixth young master, thank you for your high regard. However, I feel that there are still many things that I need to learn. I'm afraid that I can't do a good job in such an important position as the Minister of Civil Affairs." Yang Chendong smiled in satisfaction at Yin Qingba's modesty. However, once the appointment was made, it would not be easily changed. Modesty is good, but excessive modesty is not good. The position of minister will be given to you. As long as you have the people in your heart, and work seriously and responsibly like the vice minister of logistics in the city lord's mansion, there is nothing that you can't do well. Then this subordinate will listen to the sixth young master. Seeing that he had said what he needed to say, Yin Qingba's excited heart slowly calmed down and he accepted the task. All of this is thanks to City Lord Yu. It was you who recommended another talent to us. Yang Chendong smiled and patted Yu Qian's arm. Then, he looked at everyone and said, "This king will not be stingy with what I can give to everyone. However, you should not take the things that you should not take. If anyone takes it, then be prepared to be severely punished. Only when the officials are upright can good policies fall on the heads of the people. As long as the people are satisfied, then we will be able to stand firm and go further. Any official who doesn't take the common people seriously, the common people won't take him seriously, and this prince won't take him seriously either. These words are for all of you here, and I'll have to trouble you to pass it on to your other colleagues." "Yes, we will remember." Yu Qian also stood up and solemnly promised Yang Chendong. "Then, I hope that the next time I see you all, you can sit here instead of standing." Yang Chendong expressed his hope with a simple sentence. In order to have a seat when they meet the sixth young master, the other officials naturally tried their best to perform well. After the incident with Yan Xiu and the 10,000 times came out, everyone once again saw the sixth young master's determination to run a clean government. To be honest, it was a little harsh for the two powerful vice chiefs to be publicly beheaded just because they had embezzled more than 10,000 taels of silver. Even if they went to earn a salary and other benefits, they would be able to earn it in a few years or more. The treatment that Yang Xie gave to the officials was quite good. This was especially true after the implementation of the ticketing system. Those ticketing tools that were issued on time every month could be exchanged for high prices without having to take them out. It was precisely because the treatment was too good that if they made mistakes again, the risk and capital would be too high. As a result, the number of officials who became Yangxia officials in the future was much lower than any other power. Zhou Hua was removed from his official position because of the crime of not doing anything. The response was even more enthusiastic. It turned out that not being greedy and not doing things was not good in Yangxia. Yang Chendong personally said that if an official did not do things for the people, it would be better to go home and sell sweet potatoes. As an official, one had to do things one day at a time. If one did not want to offend people and did not do things, then one might as well not do anything and just go home and be a farmer. Yin Qingbo went from being the vice chief of logistics in the city lord's mansion to being the chief of a department. He also told everyone that as long as one worked hard, gold would always shine. This made many of the officials who were originally very capable but were worried that they would not be able to make it big in the future feel relieved. Originally, they were worried that no one would see them lowering their heads to do things. However, with Yin Qingbo's example, they did not have to worry so much. They also did not have to put in effort to make their superiors happy and speak up for themselves. Without people giving gifts, there were naturally no people receiving gifts. In an instant, the environment in the bureaucracy became much better. This made the people from the Ministry of Supervision and the Ministry of Anti-Corruption a lot less to do. They had no choice but to shift their attention from Qiqian City to the actual provinces under Yangxia's control. The Deputy General of Laos, Hai Qing, suddenly felt that there were a lot of strangers around him. He didn't know if he was being paranoid, so he found an opportunity and asked his confidant to invite Dou Lilong to his house. Hai Qing, Lao Province's Deputy General, was the deputy of General He Guang. He was an important figure in the military. When Kanglan Kingdom was destroyed, he was very proactive and quickly changed the rudder according to the wind. He became someone He Guang trusted and recommended to Lao Province's governor, Yuan Shaochen. Step by step, he rose to the position of deputy general. To be able to become a deputy general, he was considered the second most important person in the entire Lao Province's military. Logically speaking, he should be satisfied. However, a man's greed was like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. Soon, the greedy Hai Qing was dragged down by someone. The person who started this was Dou Lilong. Dou Lilong, on the surface, was a businessman from Siam. However, he had another secret identity, one of the heads of Siam's intelligence agencies. He was in charge of investigating the matters of the neighboring countries. When possible, he would pull in important people from the opposing factions to his side. From the moment Dou Lilong set his eyes on Hai Qing, the outcome was already decided. Just a total of 20,000 taels of silver was enough for the two of them to call each other brothers. The moment Dou Lilong revealed his identity, Hai Qing could no longer turn back. Yang Xie had a rule that anyone who embezzled more than 10,000 taels of silver would be beheaded. For someone like him who had embezzled 20,000 taels of silver, even if he turned himself in, he would at most be spared. It was impossible for him to continue being an official. Since that was the case, other than being used by Dou Lilong, he had no other choice. After receiving the news, Dou Lilong came to the high mansion as a friend and a businessman. He met Hai Qing, who was frightened by the mere twang of a bow. When they met, Hai Qing looked at Dou Lilong in panic and said, "Sir Dou, you must save me." Dou Lilong pretended to be shocked and asked, "What's wrong, General Hai? Did something happen?" "Oh, Sir Dou, you don't know. I might have been targeted. Recently, when I go out, I always find a lot of strangers around." Hai Qing explained the changes around him. He realized that he had embezzled too much and could not turn back. He continued, "Sir Dou, only you can save my life now. Seeing that I have helped your caravan a lot in the past, please help me." Otherwise, you can allow me to be an official in Siam. Although he was cursing Hai Qing in his heart, Do Lilong still smiled and said, Mr. Hai must be thinking too much. When I arrived at your residence, I didn't find anything wrong. Could it be that I'm thinking too much? No, I'm still a deputy general. I can still observe the situation around me, Hai Qing explained. Just as they were talking, a soldier suddenly reported from outside, saying that General He Guang's personal guard captain, Yan Jiang, had arrived, along with 6 other soldiers. What? What should we do? Hai Qing became even more flustered after hearing the news. He stood up and paced around in circles. Do Lilong's eyebrows twitched, but he quickly regained his composure. He smiled and said, It's okay. Many people know that we are friends. Are you saying that I am not allowed to talk to my friends when I am an official? Hai Qing did not relax at all because of this reason. Instead, he continued, Lord Do, you may not know this, but this Yan Jiang relies on He Guang's trust and is usually very domineering. You can't get past him just because he's a friend. Although he won't touch me, I'm afraid that he will take you away. If that happens, under torture, can you guarantee that you won't say anything? This. Do Lilong, who was always calm, finally changed his expression. He did not dare to guarantee anything. With his glib tongue, he boasted that he was not afraid of anything. However, if he was really tortured, who knew how long he could last? He might not even be able to last for a while. Thinking that he absolutely could not be caught, Do Lilong had no choice but to be ruthless. He made a beheading gesture with his right hand and said, Let's see the situation later. If the other party insists on forcing us, then we will strike first. Kill Yan Jiang? That will definitely infuriate General He Guang. Hai Qing's entire body shuddered, and his face turned pale. What? Do you think that if you don't kill now, others won't kill you? Let me tell you, you can only move forward now. Think about it. Once you accomplish something big, our king will be happy. He will definitely give you a high post and generous salary. It is even possible that he will help you people of Kanglan restore your country. It is better than being scolded as a traitor. Do Lilong was going all out. He did not expect the situation to be so serious. If he knew, he would not have appeared so easily. In the courtyard of the high residence, Yan Jiang, who was dressed in armor, led 6 soldiers and paced back and forth in the courtyard. After not seeing Hai Qing for a long time, he had lost count of how many times he had lost his temper. Finally, a manager came. He said that the High General was meeting with guests in the backyard and it was not convenient for him to come over. He asked Captain Yen to go over himself. Let's go. We have to take Do Lilong away today no matter what. Yan Jiang said loudly. Then, he led his 6 subordinates to the backyard. Not long after they walked to the backyard, the door to the front yard was completely closed from the inside. In the living room of the backyard, Hai Qing and Do Lilong were sitting at a table with food and drinks. Yan Jiang's sudden appearance instantly broke the harmonious atmosphere. Deputy General Hai, I suspect that this Siamese merchant, Do Lilong, is a spy from the enemy country. I want to take him away now. I hope that you can make it easy for us. Chapter 1005. The fact that he wanted to arrest Hai Qing showed that he was strong enough. However, this sentence also made Hai Qing unhappy. Captain Yen, Du Lilong is my friend. It's not good to be so rude in front of my friend. Hai Qing was a deputy general. He was someone who could be ranked in front of Wuan Shaochen. Yan Jiang was only the captain of He Guang's bodyguards. He was a family general in General He's residence. The difference in status between the two was like heaven and earth. However, He Guang placed a lot of importance on this personal guard captain and gave him a lot of power. That was why when the captain faced Hai Qing, he did not have the slightest intention of backing down. "Deputy General Hai, I am here on official business. If you insist on stopping me, do you want me to ask the general to come and talk?" Yan Jiang knew the difference in status and knew that it was useless to say more. He directly brought up He Guang. He believed that the other party would not dare to refuse. As expected, once He Guang was brought up, Hai Qing's attitude became much softer. There's no need for that. Is there some misunderstanding? How about this, Captain Yan, please come over and have a drink. If you still can't talk, then you can take my guest away. Yan Jiang didn't suspect anything. After agreeing, he strode forward to the table and poured himself a glass of wine. He raised his glass to Hai Qing and said, "Deputy General Hai, I'm sorry to offend you like this." After speaking, Yan Jiang raised his head and poured the wine into his mouth. Hai Qing took this opportunity to take out a knife that he had prepared under the table and stabbed towards Yan Jiang's chest. Caught off guard, Yan Jiang's body was pierced by a knife. The wine glass slipped from his hand. He stared at Hai Qing in disbelief. He wanted to say something, but in the end, because of his severe injuries, he fell to the ground with a plop. At the same time, more than 10 of Hai Qing's bodyguards appeared in the backyard. They surrounded the 6 people that Yan Jiang brought. First, they shot 3 of them with arrows. Then, they engaged in close combat. After paying the price of 1 dead and 1 injured, the 6 people were all dead. Take them away and deal with them properly. With the situation settled, Hai Qing waved to his loyal subordinates. He then looked at Dou Lilong and sighed. "This time, I have no other choice. Sir Dou, you can rest assured. Don't worry. I have always been very confident in the Sea General. Are you sure that He Guang doesn't know about Yan Jiang's visit?" Dou Lilong asked worriedly. "Of course not. Based on my understanding of Yan Jiang, if he had asked for General He's permission beforehand, he wouldn't have drunk my wine this time. It's just that I can't hide this for too long. If I go missing for too long, it might arouse suspicion. Should I pack up and follow Doda to Siam?" Hai Qing became anxious again. Don't worry. I will find someone to take the blame for this. What you need to do now is to keep developing your strength." Dou Lilong was much calmer. He then threw out a temptation that Hai Qing could not refuse. "General Hai, have you never thought of replacing He Guang? Are you saying that I should be the general here?" Hai Qing's breathing became heavier as he spoke. A general and a deputy general. It might seem like there was only a difference of 1 word, but the real difference in power was like heaven and earth. If he could become the general, he would not have to ask for permission for everything. It would be much more convenient for him to do many things. That's right. If we can chase Luan Shaochen and the others out of Laos, you can choose a suitable puppet to become the king of Lancang. By then, you will have the absolute power. Then, with the support of Siam, you won't have to be afraid of anyone. Dou Lilong continued to persuade him. This. Hai Qing did not answer immediately. It was obvious that he was really tempted. Once it was done, he would no longer be the deputy general. He would be the grand tutor of a country. Everything in the country would have to depend on him. How glorious and glorious would that be? Baiming was busy building a bank and looting money. Nanming was busy fighting wars and recovering lost land. Yang Chendong had a rare period of peace. Other than going to some research institutes and factories to inspect and listen to the work reports of some departments, he spent most of his time with his wives and little Lele. After many days of intimate contact, Lele finally opened her mouth to accept Yang Chendong as her father. The relationship between the father and daughter became closer day by day. It was to the extent that little Lele would search the entire palace for her father if she did not see him for a while. After every night of hard work, there was finally good news. The first wife, Hu Yan, was pregnant. After little Lele, the sixth young master was going to have a son. When the news came out, there was a burst of cheers from the streets and alleys of Qichin City. No matter what, Lele was still a girl. Everything in the future could not be controlled by a girl. In addition, Huyen was the first wife. In some people's eyes, she was like a queen. Only her son would be the legitimate son. Only then would the Yang family have a true descendant. After a moment of jubilation, Yang Shi seemed to have calmed down at this moment. He was like a big tree that was in the process of growing, and his wings were plump. At the same time, some other factions were not idle. Beneath the calm surface, there was a storm. In 1450, the Arab merchant, said Abu Bakr, established an Islamic regime in the southern Philippines. This merchant called Abu Bakr was very smart and had great ambitions. He had been doing business since his youth and was used to seeing too many people using their power to oppress merchants. From then on, he wanted to build his own force and have the final say. Only then would he not be oppressed and oppressed by others. In the end, after being selected, he came to the southern part of the Philippines and established his first regime there. He then extended his influence to Basilan Island, Palawan Island, Zamboanga Island, Borneo, MLL Island, and other places. And just when he wanted to establish a foothold here and continue to expand, there was a sudden change in Luzon Island. The five-star army occupied this place and disrupted his plans. After all, Abu Bakr was a merchant. The most important thing was profit. He knew the importance of taking the initiative. Since the five-star army had occupied Luzon Island, it was impossible for him to expel people. The only thing he could do was to continue expanding his territory. Beginning in the second month of 1456, he successively sent troops to capture the eastern island of Catanhus, the western island of Mindoro, as well as the central island of Langbran and Tizao. By the end of the fourth month, the whole Philippine archipelago, with the exception of Luzon and the nearer island of Polillo, was under Abubart's control. When Yang Xie occupied Luzon Island, the main purpose was to protect the south side of Ryukyu Island and control the sea between the two islands. He did not intend to occupy all the islands. This allowed Abu Bakr to succeed time and time again. It wasn't until the other party had taken control of most of the islands that the city lord of Luzon Island, Li Sheng, started to panic. Feeling the threat and danger, he immediately sent a telegram to the city lord's residence in Red Nest City to ask for further instructions. During this period, the inflated Abu Bakr was not satisfied with the status quo. He first changed the name of Sulu, a name that appeared in China's history books long ago, to Daif and declared himself the king of Daif. Then, he sent out his capable General Duterte to attack Polillo Island. This was more of a test. He wanted to see what kind of reaction the five-star army would have if they were already at their doorstep. Polillo Island was an island in the northeast of the Philippines. It covered an area of 600 square kilometers. It was mainly rugged hills. The highest point on the island was 350 meters above sea level. Polillo Island did not have a dry season. Most of the rain was concentrated between November and January. This island was not very big and did not attract much attention. Thus, it could stay out of trouble. There were less than 20,000 people on the island, and they mainly relied on fishing for a living. Because of Abu Bakr's greed, the peaceful area finally attracted the flames of war. When General Duterte and his 2,000 soldiers landed on the island, the lives of the people here were shattered, and nearly 20,000 people were turned into slaves in an instant. After Duterte entered the island, he did all kinds of evil. Any beautiful women were taken to the barracks. Not only were they humiliated, but they also asked the people on the island to make them food and drink. If they were not happy or slow, they would be punished with murder. It was extremely cruel. This practice naturally aroused the anger of the Aborigines on the island. Some young men who were proficient in swimming and sailing volunteered to leave the island that they had lived on for many years under the cover of the night. They rowed their boats to the nearby Luzon island to seek help. The distance between the two islands was very close. Occasionally, there would be some interaction. According to the people on Luzon Island, although the island was occupied by a force called the Five-Star Army, the people there lived as before. Not only were they not affected by the flames of war, their lives were very orderly. It was said that even the quality of life had improved a lot. They could fish, weave and farm and sell food to the Five-Star Army in exchange for remuneration. With an increase in income, the quality of life had improved. Everyone's face was filled with joy. Although General Duterte was extremely cruel and did not treat the people as humans, he was still vigilant. After a few young men rode away, he discovered them. He immediately sent 200 soldiers to chase after them in 5 fast boats bought by Abu Bakr from the west. Although the speed of this kind of fast ship could not compare to the fast ships built by the 5-star military shipyards, it was still much faster than ordinary ships. It did not take long for them to see the tail of the fleeing ship. Then, shouts sounded from all directions, and the sound of bows and arrows began to be fired. Chapter 1006. Just as the 5 fast boats were about to surround the small boat that had escaped, a boat with a 5-starred red flag sailed over in the night. This was not an official boat, but a fishing boat belonging to the residents of Luzon. The sudden encounter was not part of the plan. The soldiers who were used to riding roughshod over Polillo Island, when they saw the fishing boat, they only hesitated for a moment before making the decision to sink the 2 boats so that the incident would not be known to the world. Originally, after seeing the 5-starred flag, the escaping youngsters thought that they had seen their savior. However, when they saw that the 5-starred ship didn't have any combat power, and the enemy's ship continued to shoot arrows, with no intention of letting them go, they realized that they had implicated the enemy. They repeatedly shouted, announcing their identity and purpose, and at the same time, asking the people on the 5-starred ship to leave immediately and not be implicated. However, it was too late to say anything at this time. Since they chose to attack, of course, they would not let anyone leave. 5 Duffet clippers flew over and kept attacking. One of the clippers was even equipped with cannons. One of the cannons hit the fishing boat of Luzon Island, causing it to shake and crumble. The situation was so dangerous that the crew of the fishing boat began to abandon the boat. Some of the good swimmers took a wooden board and paddled towards the direction of Port Luzon. They had tears in their eyes as they wanted to pass on the news of being attacked by the Duffet kingdom. They clearly remembered that the new governor of Luzon, Li Sheng, had said that as long as they hung the 5-starred red flag, no one in this area would make things difficult for them. Otherwise, they would suffer 10 times, 100 times, or even 1,000 times the retaliation. The 5 Duffet clippers continued to attack. After an hour, the 2 ships that were besieged were sunk one after another. Then, they checked the sea area again and killed more than a dozen crew members who were swimming in the sea. After seeing that there were no survivors, they whistled and left triumphantly. This battle was known as the Sorrow of Luzon in the history of Xianxia. Since Yang Chendong subdued Kaohsiung, until now, in the past 8 years, any boat with the 5-starred red flag had not been attacked for no reason. The Duffet kingdom had set a precedent. People who could walk on the sea all year round, needless to say, there were always very good swimmers. The first mate of the fishing boat that belonged to Luzon province, Wang Li, belonged to the category of people who were particularly good at swimming. After the boat was hit, he jumped into his hands with a wooden board. Because his swimming speed was very fast, he left the patrol range of the Daoist country's fast boat and escaped. After that, Wang Li exerted all his strength, and based on his experience, he found a direction in the dark sea. Finally, after 2 days, when he was exhausted, he encountered other ships and was rescued. When he woke up after being fed the hot rice soup, the first thing he said was that there was danger ahead and he wanted to see Governor Li Sheng. Then, he fainted. The fishing boats were all approved by the Luzon provincial government, and there was a connection between them. Someone recognized the chief officer, and the captain immediately gave the order to return to Port Luzon. A day later, Wang Li and the others returned to Luzon Island, and then they were escorted to the provincial government. Governor Li Sheng warmly received them. After knowing what happened, he was very angry. In front of hundreds of fishing boats, he expressed that they would immediately send people to investigate this matter. If everything was true, then the Daoist country would have to give an explanation. Admitting fault, apologizing, and compensation were all necessary. Otherwise, the five-star army would have the right to use force to get justice. Li Sheng said so, and he did so. He called the Luzon Island garrison commander Hang He and ordered him to go to the location of the incident. He had to prove that there was a sea battle there, and it was not man-made damage or natural damage. In short, there had to be evidence. Speaking of which, Xianxia did not have many soldiers stationed on Luzon Island. Other than a garrison of 2,000 people, there was a public security team of 3,000 to 4,000 people. It was just that the public security was scattered. Normally, they could maintain law and order, but once there was a battle, the garrison would have to move first. After Hang He received the mission, he took the fast boat left by the five-star army and set off, heading straight to a location not far from Palillo Island. Li Sheng also sent a telegram to the Jianghu City Lord Mansion, requesting that if there was a change in the situation, the five-star army navy could provide support. In the Jianghu City Lord Mansion, the deputy city lord in charge of military affairs sent the telegram to Yuan, and the sound of a table being slammed sounded. Someone once said that he was too humble, saying that he was loyal to the people of the Ming dynasty, and not to the emperor of the dynasty. From this, it could be seen that he valued the people very much. It was precisely because of this that he and Yang Chendong had more to talk about. After being robbed here by a shady method, he could still concentrate on his work. Now that he heard that someone actually took the initiative to challenge the power of the five-star army, how could he let it go? He immediately asked his assistant to immediately contact the deputy commander of the navy, Gao Xiong, and he wanted to meet with him to discuss the matter. Just over an hour later, Gao Xiong rode a bicycle to the city lord mansion. The two big shots discussed the matter of Luzon Island in detail, and then came to a consensus. Finally, they decided to report this matter to the sixth young master. They both believed that this matter had already touched Yang Chendong's bottom line. If they reported it, they would be able to obtain a faster and better solution. In the palace, Yang Chendong was taking a walk with the first madam, Hu Yen. Women who were pregnant always liked to be sentimental. Yang Chendong would walk with her whenever he had the time, not only comforting her, but also helping her train her body. It was killing two birds with one stone. Suddenly hearing that Yu Qian and Gao Xiong had come together, his intuition told him that this must be a big matter. Dong Shuai, business is more important, you should go. I'm going to talk to my second sister, and ask for some good medicine to prevent miscarriage. Hu Yen said very considerately. Okay, be careful when you walk. Yang Chendong laughed and watched Hu Yen leave. But when he turned around, his expression became a lot more dignified. Needless to say, for the city lord and the deputy commander of the navy to come see him together, it must be an important matter. Connecting the fact that Gao Xiong came with them, and not Leng Song, the deputy commander of the army, it was very likely to be related to the matter at sea. Yang Chendong appeared very quickly. Yu Qian and Gao Xiong didn't even finish a cup of tea before he came to the living room. Seeing that the two were about to get up, he made a gesture of inviting them to sit, and sat down on the chair in the middle, and said, "Speak, did something unexpected happen?" Sixth young master is wise. Gao Xiong flattered. Yu Qian was a lot calmer. He sent the telegram from Mayor Li Sheng, governor, to Yang Chendong and said, "Bugnam of Gojoseon, merely sent a telegram saying that a fishing boat in Luzon City, Xianxia's name for Luzon Island, was attacked. According to Chief Officer Wang Li, who escaped, it was the fast ships of the recently established Dufei Kingdom that attacked. Yang Chendong took the telegram and looked at it carefully, then raised his head. The telegram said that the fishing boat hung a 5-star flag. Could it be that someone dared to attack? Yes, sixth young master. This is what made us angry. They ignored our flag, which is clearly a provocation. Previously, we didn't have many immigrants in our hands, and the distribution of the islands was too loose. We also had the new Second Army established, and North Korea provoked us, so we didn't send troops to attack them. However, this became the reason why they looked down on us. This is too much. I think that we should immediately send troops to Song City to declare our sovereignty. If necessary, we can strengthen the patrols at sea as a deterrent. As the deputy commander of the Navy, Gao Xiong's words represented the will of the entire Navy. Listening to Gao Xiong's report, Yang Chendong's eyes flashed. Is this the Navy's idea, or does the mayor's office have the same idea? The mayor's office is still waiting for the latest telegram. Didn't they say that Hang He, the commander of the Song City Garrison Regiment, has already gone to investigate? Yu Qian expressed his experienced and astute opinion. It was obvious that he wanted to get evidence first. This was also in line with the Han people's principle of doing things, which was to plan before acting. The results of the investigation? Is it really that important? Yang Chendong suddenly laughed, which made Yu Qian and Gao Xiong confused. They didn't understand what Yang Chendong meant. Without waiting for the two to figure it out, Yang Chendong already spoke. They have already sunk our ships. How long do we have to wait? I think we should order the troops to gather now and show these daring daft country how powerful we are. Do it now? But we don't have enough evidence. Yu Qian was shocked when he heard Yang Chendong so boldly decide to send troops. Evidence? Why do we need evidence? Don't you know what "don't need evidence" means? Moreover, it's already a fact that our fishing ships were sunk. The only ones who can do this in those waters are the daft country's army. So, what are we waiting for? Yang Chendong sneered. In the future, the words "don't need evidence" had restricted the development of a country. Considering various reasons, there were some things that had to be endured. Now that Yangxia's navy was so powerful, it was time to give them a taste of their own medicine. As the founder of Yangxia, the commander of Yangxia's 3 armies, Yang Chendong gave this order. Naturally, the people under him could only obey. In addition, it was indeed the daft country that provoked them first, so it was reasonable for them to send an army to give an appropriate counterattack. Yu Qian and Gao Xiong quickly agreed with Yang Chendong's decision. But what they didn't know was that this time, Yang Chendong didn't just want to teach the daft country a small lesson, but when he made his move, he wanted to destroy the country. There were already 600,000 literate and skilled commoners in Qiqian City who had made preparations to migrate. Moreover, under the Southern Ming Dynasty's war, there were still many Han commoners rushing to Mount Liang's containment formation every day, turning into Qiqian City. You're tuning in to the Unparalleled SwordWill YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.